Hi everyone, my name is Brother Thomas. I'm a member of the Oratory of St. Philip Neri, and as we approach the World Day of Prayer for Vocations, I was asked to share a little bit about what the Oratory is, how I ended up there, and why I'm there. So first, what is the Oratory? The way I typically describe it is that you take the life of a parish priest, and you take the life of a monk, and you smash them together, and you get the Oratory. So the things that we do are what most priests do. We spend a lot of time hearing confessions, celebrating Mass, meeting with people to talk about theology or things that they're going through in life, and but we do this while living in community. So we pray together each morning and evening. We have dinner together each weekday, and we follow the spirituality of St. Philip Neri. So we work at this together as a community. The third piece to the puzzle, if you will, is that the oratory is modeled after family life. So the two primary ways that this has worked out is that you join one house and then you stay there for life. So I'm part of the Pittsburgh Oratory, and I'll be in Pittsburgh for the rest of my life, except for the few years when I'm down here studying at seminary. And the other aspect is that the community remains small. So the max is typically around 15 guys. We have 8 in Pittsburgh right now. The thought process behind this is that if there were 100 guys in the building, then you wouldn't know each of them well. It wouldn't really be a family. It would be just a lot of guys living in the same building, working together, having some community, and that works for some religious orders. But it wasn't what the oratory was made to be. That the oratory was going to be like a family, where each face is known and loved, and the small structure helps to foster that because it's a smaller number of guys. You can get to know them very well. How I ended up at the oratory, the primary work at the Pittsburgh Oratory is campus ministry with the University of Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon, and I was a student at the University of Pittsburgh, and throughout my freshman year I got gradually more and more excuse me, I got gradually more and more involved with the oratory, with the Newman Center that they had run, and I was attending a Bible study and going to Mass a couple times a week, and praying there more and going to confession, and this, not surprisingly, really helped my spiritual life. And throughout that year, I realized that I hated engineering, or at least hated studying it. I like that other people do it, but it was clearly not for me. And by the end of the year, I was looking for a way out, but I wasn't really sure where to go. And a few friends and I, who were also trying to figure out what to do with their lives, we decided to pray a rosary novena together. So it were several days of praying the rosary and asking Our Lady to help us figure out what is our vocation. And a few days after that ended, I was at a men's group, and sorry, I had felt the call to priesthood several times before, and each time that happened, it was a strong, peaceful sense. But each time I just clung to 3 things. One, that it's not crystal clear that if God wanted me to be a priest, then an angel would appear or his voice would thunder forth from heaven. But that wasn't happening, so I must not be called. 2, that I would be really smart. I would just know everything that there is about theology, and that would be a clear sign that I was called to priesthood. And 3, that I would be really holy. I would just be a walking saint, and so everyone would obviously know that I was supposed to become a priest. But since these things were not true, and still are not true for me, but at the time I said, all right, these things are not true, so I must not be called to priesthood. But so I was going to an event at my parish, a men's group, and the pastor had just been reassigned, and he was saying bye to the men's group, and as he was walking out the door, he stopped and turned around and said, just keep praying for vocations. I think there are men in this room who are called to priesthood, and they think it's going to be very clear, but it's not. They think that they need to know everything, but you can learn as you go. And they think that they need to be very holy, but they just need to be themselves. And so immediately the 3 things that I had clung to time and time again had been removed. And so I started taking steps discerning priesthood. I was in the application process with my diocese when I went back to the University of Pittsburgh in the fall for sophomore year. I stayed in engineering one more semester just to make sure that it wasn't for me. And at the end of that semester, I was really tired of discerning. There were I guess I should back up a little bit. There were times where I felt called to the oratory, but there wasn't a bedroom available. There was no space for me there. So I just concluded that it wasn't the will of God for me to join the oratory, and I moved on. At the end of the fall semester, I was sick of discerning, and so when the spring semester began, I said, God, if I'm gonna leave Pitt after this semester. I'm gonna enter the seminary with my home diocese, and if you want something different, you can let me know. That's great, but I'm sick of discerning, so just speak clearly, I'll follow, but I'm done thinking about this. Lo and behold, a couple weeks later, one of the brothers discerned that he was not called to the oratory, and he joined a religious order, and that meant that there was a room available for me. And so all of a sudden, the oratory was an option, and I had gotten to know what the oratory was all about through a good friend of mine, Reed, who was discerning the oratory, and so he knew kind of who St. Philip was, what the oratory did, and it was through him that I got to know what the oratory was all about. And the more I prayed about it, it didn't totally make sense. I couldn't figure out how I fit in with this community, but I knew that when I prayed about it, I felt very at peace. I could picture myself there, years from now, being very happy and growing close to the Lord. And so it was really that the peace that I found in prayer that led me to the oratory. And a common question is, why the oratory? There are 100 religious orders or dioceses that you can join, and so why the oratory? I remember when I first started discerning, one of the priests said that the reason you visit a community is not the reason that you move in. And the reason that you move in is not the reason that you join. And the reason that you join is not the reason that you stay. And I found this to be very true. My initial draw to the oratory was just because the priests were cool guys who were holy. They knew a lot, they prayed a lot, and they were just able to be normal guys. They weren't totally weird. And that kind of drew me to have an interest in the oratory. I wanted to be part of that group. And then the longer I've been there, the more I've come to love the spirituality of St. Philip. The family dynamic of the oratory is something that I really like. To know that I can form friendships with the other members of the community that will be able to last, because we'll be working together and praying together for the rest of our lives. And I love the idea of staying in Pittsburgh forever. I know that's, excuse me, and that might be a sin to some Raven fans, but it's a great city, and I love having a home there. And I love the work, working with campus ministry. There are so many awesome college students who live out their faith courageously and who are going to do great things in the world, and they pass through the oratory for 4 years, and we get to know them and help them on that journey. And it's just a wonderful vocation. But the longer I'm there, the more difficult it is to answer that question, because the bond of charity, which is what St. Philip wanted the Oratorians to be bound by, bound in charity to the brothers, in charity to the will of God and the mission that the Oratory has. And the longer I'm there, the more I feel that bond growing. And so when I ask that question, I almost just want to shrug my shoulders and say, I don't know what else I'd do. It's become such a part of who I am, and a huge part of my relationship with God, and I can't imagine myself elsewhere. So that is a brief run through of what the Oratory is, how I ended up there, and why I chose the Oratory. If you have questions, feel free to talk to me after Mass. I'm always happy to talk about the Oratory. And please pray for Vocations and whatever whatever you think God is calling you to, don't be afraid to follow it because He has great things in store. All right. God bless. Thanks for watching.